All right, let's see if our audio is running now. It wouldn't be a stream with me if there were, no audio difficulties. All right, let's see if our audio is running now. Good deal. It wouldn't be a stream with me if there were, no audio difficulties. All right, let's just gonna add some, just adding some filters to make sure that the audio gets cleaned up. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Midnight Hatter, and this is Midnight Hatter. I'm back after a week hiatus. Announce my mecha mark, which is that Gundam 5e and I posted a lot of stuff. All of that is to say that the new PDF document Gundam 5e rule pleasure download taken F cutting out. Oh my. All right, let's see if that works. Repairing my audio. Good day. Taken. Yeah. Okay. Cutting out. Oh my. How am I sounding? Is that sounding a little bit better? Took out the noise gate. All right, let's see if that works. Seems to be working a little bit better. All right. We're going to go back and start this thing over. And I'll cut this bit off for later review. Anyway, hello everyone, I'm Midnight Hatter, the creator of Gundam 5e, and if you have visited Gundam5e.com today, then you'll find that the version 2 PDF rulebook is now available for download. So, simply click on the Rules tab and you'll be taken to the page where you can view the PDF. Fancy new cover art designed by yours truly. This update, it went through several iterations. As you know, there was a poorly performed playtest on my part several weeks ago, and we've had several other groups of playtesters come through since then, and we've revamped the entire system to be more of a return to traditional D&D 5e with some supplemental material for mobile suits and mobile weapon combat is what we're going to be referring to it as. Early in the PDF document, you'll see that I actually included my design principles. These are the core values that I tried to bring to the book when I first started this project 3-4 years ago, and it's something that I think the new version is a huge return to. I think that, and hopefully this will assuage any questions, any concerns people have about, well, why was this decision made? Why was that decision made? Why is this not that? And I think that what you'll find is simplicity, balance, and lore accuracy. Lore accuracy has kind of taken a backseat insofar as, I'm not strict about what, about specific like models of machine gun, for instance, an MMP 80 versus, I don't even know what the Zaku machine gun model number is off the top of my head. But you get my point. We're not going to get down into that level of nitty gritty because that's where you get into like Mechton Zeta levels of complexity. So, I'm just really going to go through some of the new materials here. I'm not going to do an in-depth dive on everything, but I'm just going to kind of touch on the larger changes that are going to make a big impact on gameplay going forward. One thing that I think people are really going to enjoy is the fact that we are going back to the old school 5e six ability score system. Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wisdom, Charisma. No more of this, you know, I tried to trim it back to 4 ability scores. That it worked in some ways, but it didn't work in others. I think that this is going to be a more one-to-one translation from D&D 5e to Gundam, and it'll be a little easier for people to translate things on their own. We also have races now. That's a big update. There's only 2 of them, Earthnoid and Spacenoid, but they exist. Classes. This is where we have gotten we've gotten a little bit more expansive. The classes are a little bit more robust. They are a little bit more unique. They draw on several different inspiration sources, things like the Spellless Bard class, and just, you know, as an aside, Spellless Anything class basically means that class without the spell casting ability with the fighting maneuvers, which is kind of lazy in my opinion. But we have 8 classes to choose from. Cyber New Type, Executant, which is something of a bard, you know, orator, speaker, something like that. Executant is just a cool sounding way of saying that. Fighter, classic. Infiltrator, again, rogue analog. The New Type, the Scout, which replaces the Artillery. Artillery is actually a subclass of the Scout. Sentinel, which is a all-new class, kind of based on paladins and more defensive combat strategies. And then, of course, the Engineer, which has always been a popular item, but was kind of hampered in previous editions because without the new tech casting ability that we've added, you know, the Engineer felt kind of flat. So, those are our new classes. Let's take a look. Obviously, I've taken great pains to make this book very legible and you know, packed it with what I consider good content. We've got, you know, artwork, and we've got tables, and everything's organized and clean, and hopefully you guys enjoy that part of it. Let's see. So let's take it back to our first page, because like I said, I'm not going to go through and break down class by class. We've kind of already done that stuff before, and when we go on, I'm going to create a video later on that that walks us through character creation, and we'll have an opportunity to kind of break that stuff down, because I think that, you know, a lot of the old videos that I've made, you know, instructional videos about this system, are going to end up being obsolete now because we've got an entirely new system to work with. You'll notice that there are no page numbers in this PDF, but all of the table of contents is hot linked, so you can hot link to whatever you want to see. So for instance, you know, let's say we want to go to our talent lists. Boom, here we go. So we've got 3 talent lists, one for the Cyber New Type, one for the New Type, and one for the new Engineer. The Engineer has more technical abilities that seem supernatural, but, you know, we're kind of flavoring them in a way that is true to the Gundam universe. So I'm very excited about that. You're going to see some fun stuff in there. It's going to expand the amounts of like damage that you can do and conditions. We've added some new conditions. For instance, since mobile suits are resistant to poison, we have the malfunctioning condition, which is something that, it's something akin to poisoning, but for mobile weapons. Then let's have a look here. The only things that are going to be missing from this new PDF rulebook are your Codex of Enemies and warships. Those are something that I think are going to come more in like an expansion PDF, something that's just like, you know, horrors of the 1 Year War, that we'll go through all that kind of stuff. Now, this core rulebook does go all the way up through Unicorn, so if we were to, say, go to our Mobile Weapons Codex, you'll find that we've added a lot more of the sort of combat crafts is what I'm referring to them as. Things like the gun parry, the fan, gunship, helicopter, things like that. That way you're not restricted to just mobile suits. You've got some other vehicles in there that you can play with. The biggest change to mobile suit combat is that mobile suit armor points are fixed. You do not use any kind of calculations to determine mobile suit's total armor points. The only thing that you have to calculate when switching mobile suits is your new evasion rate, which I think is going to simplify things. One of the big weaknesses of the old system is that, because you had to calculate armor points and evasion based on player level, their modifiers, and then the mobile suit stuff, it was a lot of math that you had to do on the fly. Like, if I just wanted to jump out of my Zaku and steal that GM, I'd have to break down all of the numbers. Well, hey, DM, what are the stats for a GM? And, or that GM that I stolen in particular. This is going to be a lot more simple. You've got your armor points, you've got a base evasion rate on the mobile suit, you add your dexterity modifier, not the dexterity modifier that the mobile suit comes equipped with, and there you go, you're off to the races. Now, that said, all of the mobile suits, mobile armors, mobile weapons, if you will, they all have their own stats. Obviously, Int, Wiz, and Charisma are all zeros because they are machines. They do not have intelligence or charisma, but you will find that they have their own strength, dex, and con modifiers. These are specifically for attack purposes and saving throws. So, for instance, you'll go through here and you'll probably find something like, oh man, why is the gun tank, for instance, got let's see, I think the gun tank has some silly amount of dexterity, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, why would the gun tank have a +6 to its dexterity modifier? Well, it's because it's not +7, I was close enough, 24 dex. It's not because the gun tank itself is more maneuverable, it's not that it's faster. In fact, because of its slow speed, it actually has a lower base evasion than most other units. So, and again, base evasion plus your pilot dexterity modifier is how you get your evasion rate. You are going to be an easier to hit target. However, because it is a ranged combat unit, you'll find that the strength modifier that the gun tank has is relatively low compared to its dexterity modifier, which is used for its ranged combat, attacks and damage is higher, and therefore, more impactful. And this is all detailed in the PDF. You'll see there's actually a neat little table that goes over what modifiers you use for which saving throws. So for instance, let's say you're doing a grapple check while in a mobile suit. Obviously, you don't use the pilot's strength modifier, you use the mobile suit strength modifier. Simple as that. Resisting a effect, like say, for instance, the engineer has an effect that causes the malfunctioning condition on a mobile suit. You don't use the pilot constitution modifier, you use the mobile suit constitution modifier to make that saving throw. It's pretty straightforward, I think. Those really are the biggest changes, is that A, we're moving back to more of a classic D&D 5e structure, and B, the mobile suits are treated more like vehicles. I think that in the earlier editions, I tried to make mobile suits feel more like a suit of armor that you could wear. It had its pluses and minuses, but I think that this is going to give your mobile suits a lot more personality. And as far as upgrades go, you have a lot more levers to play with. So for instance, there's upgrades that can allow you to modify a mobile suit's strength or dex or con modifier. You have different upgrades for your, fixed equipment and your special properties, things like that. So there's a lot more variables to play with to make mobile suits feel more unique, which I think was the biggest downfall of the version 1. I say version 1. It's more like version 3 of the rules that we were working from back in the day. All right. What else do we need to cover? Well, I suppose, let's stick with this for just a moment, because I think that we should probably go over the new character sheet. I think that would make life a little easier. And then you'll have this kind of as a reference to go off of when it comes to how to fill out the character sheet properly. Let's just go ahead and dash to the back of the book. All right, so we've got a brand new 4-page character sheet. You don't necessarily need all 4 pages, but you know they're there for you to play with as you feel inclined to. Let's. I'm gonna cheers to myself for all of this beautiful hard work that has gone into this document. So, our new character sheet, it is form fillable, does not have calculations. I know that that was one of the biggest things with the old version of the character sheets. I had built in all of these pre-baked calculations. I thought it was making it easier, but it actually made things more complicated because people had to kind of remember, all right, well, I don't put my full evasion rate, I only put the mobile suit evasion rate, and then the sheet will do the math for me. This is going to be a plain one. I will make one that does the auto calculations if people want to use that one. Personally, I find it to be more useful, but, you know, I think that this is more popular because it's a little bit more traditional. This is what you would get if you got like a D&D character sheet. Most of them don't do auto calculations for you. So you've got your character name, background, race, player name, class, and level. All that stuff is pretty straightforward. You've got your ability scores, ability modifiers, also pretty straightforward. We've got our inspiration, proficiency bonus, our saving throws, as well as your checkboxes for proficiency in particular saving throws. We've got our skills, which are organized for better or worse. I like this because it makes it easier for me to determine which ability score I'm using to or which ability modifier I'm using. They're organized by ability modifier and then alphabetically. So they're not quite alphabetical, but they're organized by, you know, top to bottom. They line up with the ability modifiers. Character background stuff, eject/death saves, which those are largely staying the same. Hit dice, that's another big, hit dice were something that was missing from the old system. Hit dice are coming back. Both both mobile weapons and personnel have their own hit dice, and both of them are tied to your character level. So easy as that. We've got some weapons, attacks and talents, proficiencies, equipment, features, and traits. Moving on. This page 2 is what I call the Hangar. This is where you would put all of your mobile suit information, and what I've decided to do was make it so that you can enter up to 4 mobile suits worth of information, and that way, let's say for instance, you know, you're on a ship and you've got a goof in one hangar and you've got, you know, an Ifrit in the other. You can list all of the mobile suits that you have in your possession on this sheet. That way you can switch quickly between them. You don't have to worry about like, well, I got to look up this mobile suit's stats because no, you put everything on your sheet, and you know whatever are your most commonly used mobile suits. You've got 4 slots. Each one has 4 weapon slots that you can equip. You know, if let's say you decide to throw in like your full armor Gundam here. Well, it'd help if I spell it right. You know, let's say you put in your full armor Gundam and you end up needing more weapons because you've got your Vulcans, your beam rifle, your missile launchers. You've got your, what else does the Thunderbolt full armor Gundam have? We can call it a missile pod because it's got 2 different types of missile launcher on it. And then you start getting into like that hyper mega cannon. You know, just start going down the list of weapons down the center. Makes it a little easier. Moving on down, we've got our talents page. This one is fairly straightforward. It should look exactly like the spells page of a D&D character sheet. What you will find is that the talent ability, talent save, and talent attack bonus actually have 2 fields in there. The reason is because while the new type and cyber new type classes share a lot of the same talents, I probably should have said something about that. Talents are the spells of this system, right? So new types and cyber new types share a lot of talents. They share a lot of spells that are the same. They use the same modifiers, etc. Engineers, on the other hand, do not use the same modifiers and they do not overlap. So you will have to, if you decide to multi-class as a engineer new type, which, you know, it's going to be pretty uncommon, but if you decide to do that, you're going to want to track those ability modifiers, the save DCs, and the attack bonuses separately. That's what that's for, is that you actually have two fields to do that with. And then you can fill out your talents, you know, as needed. Finally, we have, you know, this is like the character fluff page, if you will. The character name and player name are repeated. You've got your age, height, weight, hair color, eye color. I considered doing blood type, since that seems to be a thing that Japanese people love to do. Like, I'm blood type B, and that means that I'm headstrong. But decided against it. If you so desire, you can put blood type underneath weight. You've got some space for mobile weapon art, mobile suit art, if you wanted to copy and paste, you know, an image in here. I think that it should be a field. Oh, whoa. Nope, I don't want to do any of that. I mean, it's supposed to be a field that you can... Let me just refresh this page to get rid of that highlighting. It is a field where you can drag and drop an image into. And similarly, you have two images that you can put for character art. If you wanted to do like a profile picture and then like a full body picture, you can do that. You've got some notes for your mobile weapon, notes for your character, and then notes if you want to just take notes during the campaign. You can't have too much scrap paper, if we're being honest. So hopefully this will serve just about all of your needs as far as character sheets go. Obviously, we've got our additional resources here. Now, I'm going to be working tirelessly over the next few days to get the website up to snuff. There were a few issues that I had with some data validation, and that is what set me back on getting everything up right now. I would have had everything launched at the same time, but the website was fighting me on that. So I'm going to be working over the next day or so to make sure that the website is updated, and as changes happen, which of course I'm sure they're going to, obviously, you know, the Ranger class in D&D 5e has gone through several changes, Unearthed Arcana, etc. I did put a note in here just for you RAW, you know, you guys that are strict about the rule books. The website always trumps what's in the book. So now I don't anticipate there being massive changes. I mean, we're talking about like maybe a unit's armor points will change, but not likely, because I used a very specific formula to calculate all of the mobile suit stats. They, you know, nothing in this book was I'm going to make myself sound stupid here because I'm saying like, nothing in this book was actually, you know, created, you know, from scratch. Like, all of it is calculated from some other source, but it's true. You know, I used a lot of sources and I used a lot of algorithms to generate the specific values of all of these stats in order to make them more balanced. Well, not more balanced, because obviously you'll see some of the mobile suit stats are just insane. But they are clinically unbalanced. let me put it that way. But yeah, like I said, we've got mobile suits all the way up through Unicorn. I feel like I'm forgetting something that I probably ought to share with you guys. Yeah, the final page count is about 242 pages. I don't know. Sorry, I've been rambling here for a long time. Chat, remind me if I'm missing anything. Thank Odin for Hangar spending time. I like that idea, having more than one suit readily available on the sheet. Yes. And it was always my intention when I first created the system, it was always my intention that players would not just have one mobile suit that they're tied to for the entire campaign. They should want to either upgrade or switch suits based on, you know, um, situational tactical decisions. So, so yeah, you know, I really did want players to have access to more than one mobile suit, and I think that that's one of the strengths to this update compared to the old system where everything was calculated based off of the mobile suit. Upgrades, yeah, we can go through some weapons, items, and upgrades. Absolutely. In fact, I think that there's probably some good content there that we need to go over, because you will find that because the mobile suits are being treated as vehicles now, that mobile suits will actually have a threshold value. Now, there's conflicting opinions about how threshold is handled in D&D 5e, and I'm not going to say I'm better than Mike Merles and Jeremy Crawford, but I am a little bit more explicit about my terminology when it comes to threshold in Gundam 5e. So, all of your mobile suits are going to have a threshold value. That threshold is the bare minimum amount of damage that you have to do in a single attack in order to actually damage the mobile suit. The reason that I'm instituting this is to make it so that, you know, yes, personnel combat is going to be a big part of this new system. In fact, one of the big distinctions between this and previous systems, and of course from D&D 5e, is that you have two forms of combat. You have personnel combat and armored combat. Personnel combat being infantry on the ground, hand to hand, and armored combat being in mobile suits, in mobile weapons, combat craft, mobile armors, etc. They have two different ranges associated with them. If either target is in personnel combat, that means that you are going to be using personnel ranges. So let's say you are standing outside of a mobile suit and you're trying to target the pilot inside of a mobile suit. Just because they are in a mobile suit doesn't mean that your new type powers suddenly have increased range because they're in a mobile suit. You either both have to be in a mobile suit and you can do that, or you're going to be using the personnel range, which is roughly 1/10 of your mobile suit range. Now, that said, that means that weapon damages have gone up significantly, at least in terms of your mobile suit weapons. Mobile suit weapons are going to be dealing a crapload of damage in order to overcome that threshold. Now, the way that threshold works, like I said, it's a bare minimum that you have to hit in a single attack in order to damage a mobile weapon. What this means is it comes from all sources. So let's say, for instance, I am an infiltrator and I'm rolling to attack a target. I have advantage. I hit them, and my damage roll, let's say I get like 4 on the sneak attack damage, and I get 6 from the base damage of my weapon. Because their threshold is 10, and I met that threshold, that means that they take 10 damage before any resistances are applied. Now, if they're resistant to ballistic type damage, for instance, and I was using a gun, then they take 5 damage. The damage is not negated just because they're resistant to it. It's resistance after the threshold is beaten. Now, the caveat to that, on the other side, is that it has to be dealt by a single attack. That means if you're a fighter and you've got extra attack and you're rolling 3 times, and it's like, all 3 of my attacks hit, I'm going to roll a mess of dice. That doesn't break threshold either. And that's why it's going to be important as DMs to house rule things like every attack roll has to be done separately. Every damage roll has to be done separately. You're not going to do this thing where you roll 5d8 and say, how much damage did I do? It's like, no, you're probably going to roll 5d8 because some of the weapon damages are 5d8, but you're not going to roll 5d8 for 5 different attacks, is what I'm trying to say. So, going into it, you'll see here that, you know, the lowest amount of damage that a mobile suit weapon is going to do is about 3d8. And that will range all the way up to 6012 of damage. Every weapon has some properties associated with it. We're a little bit more strict in this version about mounted weapons versus handheld weapons. Pardon me. Many mobile suits are going to be restricted to either clawed weapons or mounted weapons because, you know, you can't carry a rifle with a Z-Gok. So that is all going to be detailed heavily in here. Now let's go down. We've got 4 core weapon types: basic melee, advanced melee, basic ranged, and advanced ranged. And then, of course, you have your Psychomu weapons, which most of them are only equipped so that you can use the new type talents that are associated with them. The incoms and the wire-guided weapons, those can be used by non-new type classes, and they're treated just like regular beam weapons. But they do require an extra proficiency. So, personnel combat weapons, like I mentioned, personnel combat is going to play a larger role in this version. You're going to have more weapons available to you instead of just like 4. You actually have like a body of weapons to choose from. They're not as exciting as some of the mobile suit weapons, but that's where your engineers and your new types come in to, you know, save the day with their psychic damage and acid damage and all that good stuff. We've got our weapon properties. There's a few weapon properties in here that I think are going to be exciting for some people. Burst fire. We're bringing in the burst fire mechanic for machine guns. That's pretty self-explanatory. Forceful is a property that I created. I don't think that this exists in D&D 5e. If it doesn't, it should. Weapons with the forceful property are weapons that can be wielded to greater effect by larger... What? Have I told you how much I hope you commit life into? Well, you know, I plan to. Engineer boys dominating personnel. Yeah, pretty much. So forceful weapons with forceful property, when wielded by large or larger units, actually deal more damage when they are attacking targets that are smaller than them. Basically, all that means for every size category smaller they are, they deal an extra die of damage. I think that's kind of a fun mechanic to play with, especially on the DM side, since a lot of your enemies are going to be mobile armors and things like that. Let's go through upgrades in gear. Like I said, there's a lot more upgrades to choose from now. We've got shields, we've got scattering particle cannons, we've got scattering beam guns, reflector bits, limiter removal, enhanced firing program. I mean, you guys probably can't even see this stuff, huh? This would probably be a little more helpful. So like I said, stuff that's going to buff your mobile suit ability scores, stuff that's going to buff their armor points, things like that. You'll find that mobile suits, mass-produced mobile suits, things like Zaku's, GM's, DOM's, they have more upgrade slots available to them than things like Gundams, because Gundams usually have this stuff kind of pre-built into them. So this actually is going to act as a bit of a balancing mechanic that will allow players who want to use their Zaku 1 and ride in that fat uncle carrier and, you know, just snipe people from above. You're going to be able to improve the performance of a Zaku 1, not to the same extent as, you know, a Unicorn Gundam, but you'll be able to not get destroyed. Pop Idol class, when there, it's funny you mention that, because the Pop Idol is a background. She's not called as much, but yes, there are more backgrounds available. And we can go through that as well if you guys wish. Obviously, we have our mobile suit modules. They cost a little bit more as far as upgrade slots, but you know, they're more powerful abilities. Things like the exam system, Hades system, NTD, and the biosensor. These are treated kind of like a barbarian's rage. All of them are systems that can be activated as a bonus action, and then for 1 minute you have, you know, damage resistances, or you have damage buffs, or you have increased reactions, things like that. All of these systems, I think, are pretty cool. Macross 5e. No, we are going to do Battletech 5e just to piss, or not Battletech, Robotech 5e just to piss everybody off. We've got things like the Stutzer units, the grapple guns. These are some exciting upgrades because they're going to create more tactical opportunities in combat. Some of the things that were missing from the older version of Gundam 5e were spells like Entangle. There wasn't an Entangle spell in the new type abilities. Well, now you're going to have that available to you as an upgrade, which is basically all the Stutzer unit does. Is it's the Entangle spell. Grapple gun is similar, but a little less powerful. And then, of course, one of the things that, and this is going to hopefully address a lot of people's concerns, because I get requests all the time. Where's this mobile suit? Where's this obscure MSV variant from the 1989 issue of Ace Hobby magazine that, you know, some Gunpla builder built, and then Hajime Katoki made some concept art for this, for all of your crazy obscure mobile suits that are, let's not, I don't want to discount them, but, you know, things that it's like, okay, it just has like one little upgrade attached to it, but by and large, it's the same. It's a GM, right? That's where things like these upgrades are going to come into play, because you've got, you know, a full armor upgrade, you've got a high mobility upgrade, you've got the light liner, which gives you a mid-air combat speed, shoulder-mounted cannons, shoulder-mounted Gatling guns, the Thunderbolt sector refit, sub-arm systems, Arctic climate package. You know, it didn't make a lot of sense to create an entire stat block for every single one of the 20,000 mobile suits that are available on the Gundam wiki. But if you want that specific mobile suit, you take a GM command, you slap the Arctic climate package on it, you get your resistance to cold damage, and voila, you have the GM cold districts type. Really, that's all that these upgrades are available for. Tinkering weapons and such. Yes, actually, I think that the enhancements should still be a good place to look for that. Enhancements that add, you know, your +1 to hit, basically your magic weapons, right? It's already built into the engineer class. The engineer class can do those things, but they should also be available kind of wider in the system. So yeah, absolutely. Just yes, indeed. Yeah, let's not do Battletech 5e. Good God, that's the last people I want to piss off. You've got your personal inventory items. These range from everything to and you know what? Perfect timing, because this will address some of your concerns about or about weapons getting enhancements, right? We've got different ammo types that you have available for purchase, things that will change the damage type of your ammos, which doesn't sound like a big deal at first, but when you think about the fact that a lot of these units are going to have damage resistances, you know, beating damage resistance with cold rounds, I think, is probably the coolest thing that you can possibly do. I did show the variable upgrade. Damn you. Yes, you do have the variable upgrade. You, and more importantly, with the variable upgrade, this is an important point, is that you can take it more than once. I don't think that there are any mobile suits that have 4 upgrade slots, but you can make a triple changer. You can, in fact, make a mobile suit that transforms into a submarine, as well as a tank. um, so yeah, subflight systems, these are your mounts, your mobile suit mounts. You also have available to you people mounts if you want to ride a horse. That's a thing now, because that was a thing in Char's counterattack. So we've got our ammo types, we've got our various kits. One of the big problems is that none of the kits actually used to say what's in them, so now all of the kits have their contents listed on the in the PDF, which is great. And then we have things that are just, trinkets and things that are going to be worth extra money to sell to you. We have, your standard health potions, your emergency repair kits, and your first aid packs. You've got your spare oxygen tanks, which are compatible both with normal suits and with scuba suits. That way, you have the ability to operate underwater and in space. You've got different types of clothing as well as battle armor that you can wear to improve your personal evasion rate, because, like I said, personnel combat versus armored combat. Your mobile suits have an evasion rate, you personally have an evasion rate. For the second, Blitzwing, here I come. Let's see. Yep, here's all of our trinkets. Special shout out to Ultronomus for coming up with many of these trinkets, most of these trinkets, all of these trinkets. Shout out to our hamburger here. So I think that is about everything that we need to cover. I don't think that there's, like I said, I'm going to be working both this evening and tomorrow to get the website up to snuff. That way you have these as searchable tables and things like that. Because right now, it's going to be a little difficult to find the right talent, at least for me. I'm not a big fan of pawing through books to look for, specific spells. Here you've got your new type talents. I'm not a big fan of pawing through all of that stuff. I like to be able to just search it. So I do want to get the website up to snuff so that people can use that as well as this. But I think that it is, I think that it's something special. I am quite proud of what we've put together here for you guys to use, and hopefully you are as excited as I am to start digging into it and start making some games around it. Now that it is more closely tied to 5e, it's a little bit more easy to integrate things from 5e into this game. Character HP is going to be a little bit lower than your average 5e game, so bear that in mind. But for instance, you could take these mobile suits and then play with 5e characters and just use the mobile suits if you wanted to. You could use the D&D 5e class system and just use the mobile suits as like an add-on. Nothing wrong with that. Let's see. Oh, I guess we should probably go over some of those optional rules before we wrap up, because there are some optional rules that I think some people might enjoy. For one, ace pilots. The game is designed around pilots themselves, infantry being pretty squishy. You're not going to survive a beam saber to the face. You're not going to be able to pull a Luke Skywalker and say, please, sir, may I have some more? So that said, if you want to have like a little bit of a lower stakes game, if you want to have a game where your players feel like superheroes, they've got a bit of plot armor to them, The Ace Pilot option allows you to add one hit die plus their con modifier to their max hit points per level, basically turns them into the traditional 5e version of that class, which guarantees that they're going to have more hit points. You know. Let's see. All the updates. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the updates look fun as well. Do I plan on making new subclasses for the classes that are missing subclasses? I think there's only 2 that are missing subclass, right? Like Engineer, I know, only has 1 subclass. And then I think probably Cyber New Type is the other one that doesn't have a subclass. I would have to think about that. Obviously, everything is open for community content, and one of the things that I'm trying to work on is making publishing community content much easier, which is what led to the problems that I'm having right now with the website not being as updated as I'd like it to be. I am creating a form and a document to allow people to, when they submit community content, it will automatically be published to the website. That would be cool. I think, but yeah, I don't personally have any plans to add any more subclasses just yet. The no new types rule. This is obviously, for people that prefer a more gritty, realistic war experience, a melodrama, military melodrama compared to a space opera. Durability, which is it's been a classic rule from going back to first edition Gundam 5e. The durability update just gives they're slightly buffed armor points to your shields. Shields actually take damage, which makes you think a little bit more tactically. Limb damage, which was another big request. I honestly almost made this the core system until I decided that it was going to be a little bit inaccessible for new players. Limb damage, there's a recipe in here for calculating out what each limb would, what their threshold would be, what their armor points would be, what each limb's evasion would be. And this makes it feel a little bit more like a hard sci-fi RPG. This is how the warships are treated, where it's like every cannon on the ship is its own entity that you can target and destroy. Similarly, it would be the same thing. This could actually make infantry combat more interesting. It's going to drag out, like combat's going to become a little bit more of a slog if you have to worry about limb damage. But because the thresholds of individual limbs are lower, it gives players an opportunity to say, all right, I'm going to use a bazooka and I'm going to target that Zaku 1's arm, blow their arm off, and disable them. Stuff like that. I think that it opens up the door for things like, a Build Fighters expansion where you actually customize limb damage based on which mobile suit's limb you add on. Stuff like that. Defense rolls. This is obviously one that's from Unearthed Arcana. It's one that I plan on using in all of my role-playing games going forward. Pretty simple stuff there. Is basically people roll to have enemies hit them instead of the DM rolling to hit the players. Increased criticals. Those are I think that's going to be one that is valuable to play with, where you automatically take the highest value on a damage die to make sure that when you land a critical attack that you don't, roll snake eyes and have a dud. Bonus action consumables, that makes life a little bit easier on players because they have the ability to, use a first aid pack or a repair kit on an ally, and it only costs a bonus action instead of a full action. Carrying capacity. This is one that I that I want to make special note of. All right. So one of the things that I've gotten rid of in this system is the loadout. It was a point of big contention, right? Because you had mobile suits that could only carry like 2 weapons when, canonically speaking, they were strapped, right? They had like 2 beam pistols, 2 beam sabers on each shoulder, and then they had like a double beam rifle and a Gatling gun, and the system didn't allow you to do that. Now, I've gotten rid of that because ultimately what it comes down to is in your base combat rules, you have to take a full standard action in order to change weapons, right? So even if you have extra attack and you're a fighter and you're holding a beam rifle, then you're not going to be able to say, all right, I'm going to shoot my beam rifle and then I'm going to shoot this cannon and then I'm going to shoot this missile launcher. You're not going to be able to do that because it takes a full standard action to change weapons unless it has the hands-free weapon property. That said, as far as carrying capacity goes, be reasonable. Don't walk around with 12 beam bazookas on your back and just like, boom, I shoot 1 beam bazooka, I drop it as a bonus action because I don't want to have to reload it as a standard action. Boom, I'm going to shoot another one. Well, you'd have to spend an action to do that anyway. Point is, it comes down to what your DM wants. I am not restricting carrying capacity in the official rulebook, which means yes, you can carry 5 beam sabers if you want. You can carry whatever you want. Ultimately, in combat, it's not going to matter because you're going to have to switch weapons as a standard action anyway, unless you have a feat that says otherwise. That said, for DMs that want to have a little bit more strict, a little bit stricter, grounded, more realistic gameplay, there's a recipe built in here where your carrying capacity is based off of your strength modifier if you're in personnel combat, or your constitution modifier if you are in armored combat. And then each weapon that is weighted as light or heavy counts as a certain number of slots against that carrying capacity. Players, I'm trusting you. Don't be dicks. Otherwise, your DM is going to use this rule. I promise you. And I put it in there as a warning, not as it's a threat. Yes. Yeah. I'm glad that, I'm glad that everyone agrees that the loadout system was a problem. Now you still have upgrade slots, which are slightly different. That only applies to mobile suit upgrades, but your weapons are not limited anymore. When do I think this will be ready to release in the future? Well, it is. It's available now. You can go to the rules tab of the website to download the PDF, or resources tab to get your character sheets. Like I said, the character sheet, it's form fillable, but there's no calculations in there. If people want, I will make one that does the auto calculations for you. If that's something you guys are into, I will definitely do that. But I think right now everything is ready to go. I just need to worry about getting the website up to snuff, make sure that everything is searchable and sortable, and you guys have everything you need to run a Gundam 5e game. Hopefully you guys are digging this new update. I'm very excited about it. I think it's a little bit more robust. I think it is truer to the spirit of both D&D 5e and Gundam. And I think that this is just the first step in a lot more content to come. Yes, exactly. Upgrade slots are like attunement slots. And you know what? That might be a good way of tracking enhanced weaponry. If you decide to make that +1 Zaku machine gun, it costs you an upgrade slot. That's not me speaking officially. That's just me throwing out ideas. Anyway, I think that is going to be everything that I wanted to share with you guys this evening. Gundam 5e version 2.0 is available now at Gundam5e.com for your for your viewing and download pleasure. Go nuts with it. Like I said, over the next 2 days, the website will be updated to reflect all of the new changes, and we're going to be making community content a lot more accessible and just adding more assets, adding more things for you guys to play with. I hope you guys are into it. I'm into it, and I'm excited to see where people go with it. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below, or reach out to us on Discord, where most of the action happens, let's face it. And yeah, I look forward to running some campaigns here starting in the next few weeks. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the stream now, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in and walking through the rulebook with me. Let's see, glad you're staying good and letting... Let's get some fun stuff, yes. Yes, Legion is now officially my go-to sprite generation suite. And again, I think that I need to... This is one of the reasons that I wanted to add that community content submission tab to the website, is so that we can have a pool of assets for people to use. Right now, it's kind of limited to the people on Discord. But if you don't want to join Discord, I understand that. I want to make it easier for you guys to get those sprites, to get those VTT assets, to get the STL files if you want to print minis, things like that. I need to create that section on the website, and that's what's coming in the weeks to come. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this. I would say it's a sneak peek, but it's like kind of a launch day trailer of Gundam 5e version 2.0. If you guys, want to see a Gundam 5e version 2.0 game run on the channel, let me know in the comments below, and I will assemble a team, Avengers style, and run a full-fledged campaign, not just a crummy one-shot with junk characters. We will commit to the bit, so to speak. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, a good rest of your week, and I will catch you all later. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.